Working with internationally based affiliates can open up a whole new world, pardon the pun there, of opportunity for your affiliate program. But there are some challenges and considerations to keep in mind. So in this episode, I'm going to share exactly how to work with affiliates from all over the world and grow your affiliate program in new ways. Welcome to the Affiliate Guy Podcast. If you want to grow your income, serve your tribe, and enjoy all the benefits of affiliate marketing and having your own affiliates, you're in the right place. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get started. So here's the thing. Some of the best affiliates I've worked with were international affiliates. Some of the best affiliates were from, I'm thinking of individuals from Canada, Ireland, the UK, Germany, Italy, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco. Had some good ones from Thailand, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, France, all of Scandinavia, Mexico, Puerto Rico. I've had some from Central America, South America, all over the world. Some of the best affiliates. Also some of the worst. And the thing is, that's no different than US-based. Right? That is no different. Some of the worst affiliates I've worked with were right here in the good old US of A. Some of the worst affiliates I've worked with were from the Midwest. Some of the worst affiliates I've worked with lived near me in Tennessee when I lived there. We had one that was only a couple miles away. One of the worst I've ever worked with in terms of all the issues you'd expect. Communication issues, fraud, bad marketing, not living up to their promises. Everything you could possibly think of that would make somebody a bad affiliate, they've been in the US, they've been internationally. And it's really the percentage-wise, it's been no different. Because one of the big things that people think of with international affiliates is the fraud side. No, dealing with all that fraud. And we're going to talk about that today. But there are some great affiliates. But there are some unique challenges and some unique opportunities. And that's what we want to talk about today. So I'm making the assumption, as I talk about this today, that you are a US-based program who wants to possibly work with some affiliates overseas. So this is not for you. I'm not talking about being in Ireland trying to recruit Irish affiliates. I'm not talking about being in Great Britain trying to recruit American affiliates. I am talking about being in the US recruiting international affiliates, okay? So first of all, why would you work with international affiliates? Well, the first one, most obvious one, is just expanding your market, increasing your reach. That's probably the biggest reason to work with international affiliates is the opportunity for market expansion. You know, if you take these affiliates, they understand the culture they live in. They understand the consumer behavior. They understand how to market in their neck of the woods. And sometimes, especially when you're dealing with countries like India, their neck of the woods could be their 50-mile radius. We think of how do you market to Americans? And yeah, there are some nuances to marketing to somebody in Georgia versus Minnesota, but it's virtually the same. There are dramatic differences between marketing to somebody in New Delhi or Bangalore or Pune, India. There are dramatic differences to marketing somebody in the rural areas of China versus Shanghai versus Hong Kong. There are dramatic differences marketing to somebody in northern Germany versus southern Germany. And they know their area. They know those consumer behaviors, like I said, and the preferences and trends that are going on, that local insight. And so when you have international affiliates, you can extend your reach beyond the American borders in this case. You get to tap into new demographics and markets that maybe you could never market to profitably. And I'm not talking if you're a multinational, multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company, yeah, you've got the money to go hire a director of European operations and hire a bunch of people in Europe and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to market over there. You can do that profitably over time. But for the average company, average meaning under $50 million, under $100 million even, it's hard to do that. So you need to get international affiliates. It's the only profitable way to reach into those new markets. And the second thing, and I sort of touched on this, is the cultural relevance, that cultural authenticity. Here's the thing. They know their market better than you do. They know their market better than you ever will. And they bring much more to the table than just an audience. Like they know they have that local expertise. They know their local market. They know the competitive landscape. They know the regulations. That's the other thing is when you're breaking into a new country, sometimes you don't know all the laws. You'll need to learn them, but they know them. I consider that insider knowledge. And that's one of the things I found is these international affiliates, sometimes they had US-based audiences too, by the way. But with their audience, in whether sometimes it was Canada. Canada's a little bit different than the United States in terms of marketing. The United Kingdom is a little bit different. And so they bring that local experience and those cultural sensitivities. That's another thing is we all see the billboards where Pepsi puts up a commercial, and because they use a translator app, it says, drink Pepsi, get diarrhea. Things like that. Drink Pepsi and your wife will die. Like they don't mean to do that, but it's a translation thing. And sometimes when you use American phrases and translate them into a foreign language, for example, it comes out wrong. Sometimes it comes out right, but it's a culturally insensitive thing to say. And I don't know that. How could I possibly? I'm a single individual. How could I know hundreds of different cultures' sensitivities? There's no possible way. But that local affiliate does. The third thing is it's going to introduce a new level of innovation, a new level of creativity. Anytime you bring in diversity. And I know that's a buzzword today, and that's not necessarily what I mean. I mean diversity of thought. When you bring in diverse perspectives, that leads to more innovation. Because they're going to ask questions that you would almost think, gosh, that's a really stupid question if an American asked that. But when somebody in another culture asks that, I go, all right. And that opens new doors. When you collaborate with these affiliates from all these different parts of the world, you start to get fresh ideas. And you start to think of new marketing ideas. And this can translate into better marketing for other parts of your company, by the way. You can share these things with your marketing team. And this just leads to new ideas, leads to all kinds of breakthroughs. Every time I've started working where we took a program that was American-based and then added international affiliates, it helped our American affiliate program. We had better messaging and just this creativity that I can't really describe. I can't really describe this creativity, but it just had an increase in creativity and innovation on our side. The fourth thing is just more visibility globally. You're now putting your brand on a global stage. You're getting seen, you're getting recognized by audiences all over the world. And not only does that increase brand reputation in the US, but it opens doors to new partnerships because, again, I go work with one affiliate in India, and then I work with 2, and then 3. And the same thing happens when I work with 1, 2, 3, 10, 100 in the US. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of people in India, maybe in that localized area of India, are seeing that there's like 10 different people promoting this brand. Maybe I should promote it too. And you get to replicate. We talked about this 30 or 40 episodes ago, how to experience that exponential growth by focusing on one niche. And I said how we went out and we worked with one niche. We worked with mommy bloggers, and then we dominated that. And then we worked with wedding photographers, then graduation photographers and baby photographers. And then eventually we worked with nonprofits, and we worked with PTAs and PTOs and all those things. And we focused on one thing at a time. The same is true when you focus on one thing at a time in that new country and you get 10 or 20 or 30 of them, you start to get saturation in the market, and then you grow. And then you start to get affiliates, like you work your butt off to get your first 30 to 100 affiliates in the UK. And all of a sudden, your next 200, you only personally recruited 50 of those. You got 150 who just came to you. And then of the next 400, you only recruited 2 of them. And the other 398 came to you. That's a huge thing. The fifth thing is just a consumer trust, consumer loyalty in that market. Yes, you can start selling your product in Hong Kong. You can start selling your product in Australia. You can start selling your product in Egypt. But do they trust you? Gary Vaynerchuk says, trust is the currency of the digital age. And when consumers see their favorite influencer, their favorite local influencer, local again being my country or my region of that country, when they see an affiliate endorsing a brand, that creates an immediate level of trust. More so than I could go over there, I could run Facebook ads, but I'm an American company saying American things, coming in and waving an American flag, whatever, it's not as trustworthy as a local affiliate. So these affiliates already have that loyal following. They already have credibility. They already speak the language. They know the culture. They have the accent. They say the words. Just think about England and America. We speak the same language, English. And yet there are certain words that they use that we don't use here in the United States and vice versa. Or they mean completely different things. It's crazy. And so we need them to be speaking that language. They even add use to words that end in OR. It's crazy. All right. Number 6, adaptability to global trends. Because again, the rest of the world is changing differently. Different parts of the world are changing differently than the United States is. And they're like an antenna. They are reporting back to us, here's this thing that's happening in Germany. At some point, if Germany is ahead of the US, it's going to hit the United States. So we get first access. We get first access to, think about years ago when I grew up in Nashville. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and I would go back to Nashville for, weeks at a time. And Nashville is Music City, right? Then I'd go to college in Knoxville, just 3 hours away, but different radio stations. And this song that I listened to over the summer in Nashville, and it was number one in Nashville in mid-June. I'm thinking there's a song in particular, if you remember the song Lullaby by Sean Mullins. Everything is going to be all right. Rockabye, rockabye. Anyway, no, I'm not going to sing it. But it's one of my favorite songs. That song was like the number one song in Nashville in early August of 1998, I believe. I go back to college. It's not the number one song in Knoxville and most of the rest of the country until October. I was already tired of the song. A great song, but I was already kind of like, I've heard the song 100 times. Being in Nashville put me on the front of all the trends that were happening in music. I was a Hootie and the Blowfish fan 6 months before they were huge. I was already tired of REM's first album before they'd ever made it big. The Foo Fighters. Nobody even knew Dave Grohl had left Nirvana, and I was already like, I love the Foo Fighters. Same kind of thing. Pearl Jam, all these bands that came up in that time. I was 3 to 6 months ahead. And that's the same thing when you work with international affiliates. Sometimes Germany, sometimes Italy, sometimes Japan, they'll be behind the United States, and that's fine. But sometimes they're ahead, and you get to position your brand as a trendsetter rather than being a follower because you have access to those international affiliates. So that is 6 reasons why you should work with them. Now, I mentioned there's some pluses, there's some minuses. There are challenges to working with them. So what are those challenges in working with international affiliates? Well, the first one was pretty obvious. Just, we talked about the positive of the culture and the language, but there's also a cultural and language barrier. There's just different cultures. There's different languages. I cannot stress the importance. Communication is the heart and soul of a successful affiliate program. And when you have this language barrier, it creates an obstacle and there can be misinterpretations. I can't tell how many times I've written back to an affiliate. I'm responding to them like I would anybody else. They're like, oh crap, as soon as I send the email, I'm like, wait a minute, that guy is not going to understand what that means. I think of the comedian Jose Sardui, and he talks about they had some contractors in their house. His mom is from Cuba, and she really did not understand any of our local idioms. And she was like, this contractor had put in something that she didn't want. She's like, he says, I am not paying for that. And he's like, oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I got a wild hair up my butt on that one. And she's like, I did not need to know that. She doesn't know what that saying means. So if I type that in an email to an affiliate, it's like, what the heck? So you need to just be thoughtful. You need to think, make sure you pay attention. Okay, that's right. This person is in this country and here's how that's going to come across. Stick to more basic communication and less colloquialisms. Don't try to be as funny. It's not that you can't be funny, but maybe try a little bit less, and I have to be careful of that. I would say things like wild hair at my butt. And for those of you in Germany, you're like, why is he talking about his butt? Because that's a saying in America that means crazy idea. All right. The second challenge is just regulatory. You've got different laws, different countries, different regions. When you're dealing with international affiliates, they don't know the American laws, but you have to follow them, and therefore your affiliates do. For instance, if you got international affiliates, and they have any U.S. audience whatsoever, they have to abide by the FTC rules. And I'll link to that if you want to know. By the way, I've done a couple episodes on FTC rules and the changes for 2023. I will link to that. I've even got a template that you can download if you need to create affiliate terms and conditions. I'll link to all of that so you can make sure to grab those. But my point to that is, if they don't know what the FTC is, what does that even mean to them? But as far as they know, they just need to know they need to follow American law. All right. If there are any restrictions or regulations that come with working with an affiliate in Thailand, Singapore, Morocco, wherever, you need to know that. You need to know what those regulations are. It's one of the advantages to working with a network. I recommend ShareASale. I've put 2 of my clients on ShareASale this week. Actually, 1 client and 1 friend. It's a friend of mine that I recommend his company go up on ShareASale. I put 2 people up on ShareASale this week. Why? Because they're the affiliate network that I recommend. I'll link to them in the show notes. But here's the thing. They take care of that. They make sure that they tell us, hey, this affiliate's in Egypt. Here's what you need to know. This affiliate's in, Kyrgyzstan, you need to know this. So that's one of the advantages to working with a network. And if you don't work with a network, get a good attorney that knows international law. All right, number 3 is a big one. Outside of South America, Canada, Central America, any of the Western Hemisphere, which accounts for roughly 20% of the affiliates, most of the affiliates are going to be 4 or more hours away from me in terms of their time zone. So these time zone differences are going to be a challenge. Hey, I'd love to set up a call with you. Cool. 5 a.m, my time, or 8 a.m, your time. Neither one of those is great. There can be a delay. If I send an email out at 3 p.m. and I have a large European affiliate program, 20% of my affiliates are in Europe, 3 p.m. is not a very good time. That's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, depending upon where they're at in Europe, p.m. Now they're going to respond at 5 o'clock in the morning, my time, and I'm not going to respond until 10 in the morning, and we're almost at a 24-hour cycle. So if at all possible, and again, you can do this with most tools. If you're running an in-house program and you're using like a tool like GMass, I'll link to that in the show notes. That's what we use for our mail merges with our affiliates. I do not recommend, by the way, that you use, if your affiliate program is on Infusionsoft or Post Affiliate Pro or any of those, that you use that system to email your affiliates. There's a whole episode I did like 300 episodes ago. I don't have time to get into that for this episode, but the basic reason is the deliverability rates are terrible. And if they unsubscribe from your marketing emails, they also unsubscribe from your affiliate program emails. And it's a really bad thing. All right. It's a disaster. So don't do that. Use something like GMass. There's other tools as well. We just use GMass because we love it. Use GMass, send your affiliate emails that way. But either way, if I'm scheduling an email and 60% of my audience is in America and I want it to go out about 10 a.m., but the other 40%, let's just say they're all in Europe, I need to send that 4 or 5 hours earlier, or even 6 hours earlier. I need to send that earlier in the day. So now that email goes out at 4 a.m, my time. Great. They respond at 7. Cool. I'm able to get to their email first thing at 10 a.m. That's still 2, 3, 4 p.m. for them. They now get a same response. Now we're in an 8-hour window, 9-hour, maybe a 12-hour window of responses versus a 24-hour window of responses. So be cognizant of those time zone differences. Communicate with them at a time that's effective for them. Again, I can't get on a call at 4 a.m. All right, now if it's a big enough affiliate, I might. I'll figure out a way. I've done calls at 7:30 in the morning. It's not a big issue. I've done calls at 8 o'clock at night if I need to, but I try not to. And there's nothing I can do for a small affiliate who wants to talk to me at 10 o'clock at night. I can't. Sorry, I just can't do it. That's my family time. But if a small affiliate wants to talk to me at 2 p.m, I absolutely can. All right, next one is just the payment issues, currency conversions and all that stuff. We just dealt with this with a client. We got into their system to pay the affiliates and we forgot to change a setting. They're based overseas and it defaulted to their thing. So I can't remember if it overpaid the affiliate. I think it underpaid them by about 6%. The conversion rate's pretty close, but it underpaid them by 6%. Oops, it happens, right? So that's a challenge. You don't have to worry about that if they're in the US. Well, we would actually if most of these affiliates are in the US, but our client's in another country. So that's where the issue was. The same is true if they are overseas, and you just need to make sure you pay attention to that. If you're doing anything other than like PayPal, you're dealing with international banking systems, exchange rates, transaction fees, all these things, you just need to make sure you're accounting for that. And here's the thing. If you're going to pay your affiliates in US dollars, you need to be clear in your terms. I'll put a link, like I said earlier, to the terms and conditions template. Just put something in your terms that says, we pay in US dollars, and that might be more or less when it converts to your currency. And that's what it is. If there's a transaction fee, you have to decide who's paying the transaction fee. Typically, with our bigger affiliates, we'll just eat the transaction fee. With our smaller ones, we'll say, hey, it's best if we only pay you once every 3 months. And if you agree to be only paid every 3 months, we'll eat the transaction fee. If you want to be paid every month, you'll have to eat the transaction fee. So there's some ways around that, but be aware of that. Obviously, number 5, quality control, brand consistency. Again, we're dealing with diverse cultures. There's a challenge there. We're dealing with different regions and different people who interpret these brand messages differently. And we've got to be sure that we are controlling the brand representation. For most companies, that's a big deal. So I mentioned before that having that local international affiliate, meaning they're local to their region, that gives us the advantage because they're representing their people in that area. They know their language. They know their culture. But the balance that we have to strike is that they also have to represent us. So for me, we want them to be able to create their own creatives and use their culturally relevant things, right? But they need to run them by us. We just want to make sure they're on brand. So that's all I ask. With international affiliates, hey, if you're going to create your own graphics, your own messaging, just run it by me real quick. I'll take a quick look at it, improve it in a few minutes. Again, I'll try to improve it as quickly as possible because if you email me at 9:00 at night, I'm not getting back to you till 9:00 in the morning. And then you're in bed. I get it. So it might take 24 hours, but we do try to respond quickly to those. So just ask them to run it by you. That's all. Number 6, the differences in technology. Some places don't have high-speed internet yet. They've got lower bandwidth. And so we need to make sure that if we're going to work with international affiliates, an affiliate, say, in sub-Saharan Africa, or even parts of the Middle East, where they don't have that technology infrastructure as much. And again, this is rare, but in some areas they just don't. Even in Eastern Europe, they still don't. So we need to make sure that we have opportunities for them to promote maybe on a lower bandwidth. So maybe a little bit less graphic of a website. Make sure your images are compressed and things like that. If you've got a 50-page sales page, like 50-page downs, right? Some of us do. I mean, we have one that's over 20 pages and it converts great in the United States, terribly internationally. How do we convert that into maybe a 5 or 6 page one with a few less graphics? Like instead of a background image, it's just a background color. That's one of the things that we do that makes it really easy for those pages to load for slow bandwidth is just eliminating background images. So we'll just create a completely different version. We'll clone that, change 10 of the background images to background colors, and eliminate a few more images and cut off half the page, and we're done. It's super quick, actually. It takes us less than an hour, and it's worth it. All right, the next thing I want to address is fraud. Anytime you're working with international affiliates, here's the reality. The fraud rate is higher. It is not astronomically higher. It is not higher in terms of, if you got 100 American affiliates, you might have one that's a bad apple. If you have 100 international, you may have 2 that are a bad apple. And it's really more like out of 1,000, you'll have 1, and out of 1,000, you'll have 2. You go, that's twice as high. Yeah, it's 2 out of 1,000. It's not dramatically higher, but it is a little bit higher. How do we combat that? Number 1, you've got to be more rigorous with your vetting, with your screening. I'll just say this. With the affiliate programs I've run that have a track record of being susceptible to fraud, okay, this is the important thing. If it's not susceptible to fraud, you don't have to worry about it. But if it is, we have set rules up that basically, we don't do this automatically, but when I look at, say, 20 applications in a day, 10 of them are US-based, 10 of them are international. The 10 US-based, I'll spend a couple of minutes on each one, and I approve them if they pass. On the 10 international ones, there are certain countries, this is just the reality. The reality is they have had a higher fraud rate. Does it mean the people of that country are bad? Of course not. But they have had a higher fraud rate. And so when I deal with those countries, based on my experience, I vet them more rigorously. I make them jump through more hoops, essentially. I will look at their site. I will do a background check on how old the domain is. If we're on a network, I will not accept an international affiliate that doesn't have a highly positive rating from the network. And then I will decline them. And that gives them an opportunity to follow up with me and say, I was declined, but here's why I think I should be accepted. And at least it starts a conversation. So I vet them a little bit more stringently. The second thing is we just put it in the terms and conditions. Again, I mentioned that before. You can download the template, but we put in specific terms that combat fraud. And we require them, both international and US, to adhere to ethical marketing practices, to abide by the legal standards, to abide by the data protection regulations, all those things. We keep an eye out for the international laws around those. And we are a little bit more lenient with the US person who violates the terms. Again, there are levels, but it's like, oh, you violated this thing that's buried in the terms and you didn't know, and you've otherwise been a good affiliate. This is your warning, don't do it again. If you're international and you come out of the gate and immediately violate the terms, I'm more likely just to ban you from the program. That is just the reality. And again, from my perspective, it's a protection for my clients and for me. I also monitor traffic quality from affiliates that are international a little bit more so than the US, affiliates the first couple of weeks. We use anti-fraud technology. There's so many out there, I can't even name them, but there's a ton of different ones. You could just Google it. I don't have a recommendation because I've used 10 different ones and they're all great, but also all had flaws. But I'll use that. I'll use some anti-fraud technology. And again, I use it more on the international affiliates early on to identify any patterns, irregularities, looking for fraudulent activity. And again, I just audit them a little bit more frequently than I do a US-based affiliate. The last thing really is that I want to, more so than a US-based affiliate, I want to be in touch with an international affiliate. That's why I said I'll decline them, but I'll send an email that says, hey, I declined you. Here's why. If you disagree, let's talk. And I want to talk to them. Like, what kind of vibe am I getting? What kind of vibe am I getting via email? And I realize there's a language barrier, but how are they going to effectively promote my product if they can't effectively communicate with me? How are they going to effectively promote this product if literally their emails it feels shady? I feel like I'm a part of a scheme. Like, hey, how are you planning on promoting this? And they just say SEO post. That's their entire reply. No. Like, I need more information than that. What are you going to be doing? What value are you going to bring to my affiliate program? That's what I want to know about all affiliates, but more so with international, again, because of the slightly increased rate of fraud. I just have to be a little bit more careful. As far as communication with affiliates, I mean, first of all, I touched on this earlier, but learn their culture. Learn their culture. Cultural intelligence, right? So take the time to learn their cultural norms. What are their business practice, communication styles? One of the examples is holidays. Don't assume that they know what your holidays are. Don't assume that everybody in all over the world knows that July 4th is a big day in the United States, or the MLK Day is a big day, or Labor Day or Memorial Day. They probably know what Thanksgiving and Christmas are, of course. But even Christmas is on different days. If you got like Orthodox, non-Orthodox, there's like 2 or 3 different Christmas days. I don't think you have to account for every international holiday, or it would be literally 4 different holidays a day every single day. But make sure you at least know what are the big ones that are more universal, but maybe not as big in the United States. And I don't know what those are, but make sure you know what they are. Make sure you're using the right communication channels. WhatsApp is much bigger outside the US. I don't even use WhatsApp. I have the app. I have literally not messaged anybody in 2 years on WhatsApp. Nobody's messaged me in 2 years, but it's huge internationally. So know what those things, Skype is huge internationally. I can't remember the last time I Skyped with an American. Probably 2015, but international affiliates, I've Skyped with probably 3 dozen in the past year and a half, 2 years. It's big overseas. Establish those protocols like we talked about. If you have a lot of international affiliates, make sure they know. Like, I check email between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Here's how to convert to your local time. Make sure they know when you're available, via phone. Now, if you've got a huge amount of affiliates in an area, consider hiring a virtual assistant or an affiliate manager in that area. If 10% or more of your affiliates are in a completely different country that speaks a completely different language, or that is more than 3 hours outside of your time zone, maybe 4 hours. Let's say more than 4 or more. Hire somebody there. Hire somebody in the UK. If you got 20% of your affiliates in the UK, hire somebody there. Hire somebody in Asia. At least they'll be on the right time zone, right? And a lot of times when you're dealing with maybe like somebody from Korea versus somebody from China, they are used to speaking together in English. Again, they're not going to use those colloquialisms and things like that. So usually you can do stuff with like a translator app, Google Translate, but figure out a way to work with them on a better level if they make up a large percentage of your affiliates. Use technology, to talk in real time. Use Zoom, use Google Meet, use instant messaging apps, WhatsApp and stuff like that. The last thing I would say with regard to the communication side is to just give them access to a lot of training. Yes, it's going to be you training them. It's going to be in English. Does it make sense if you have a large, again, you've got 20% of your affiliates are in Germany? Does it make sense to possibly hire a German? Probably, at least to do maybe do the training. Could you find somebody, an affiliate trainer in Germany who could take your English and translate it, maybe not word for word, but translate the gist into German and pay him $3,000? Sure. That would make a lot of sense. If you got somebody in India, again, could hire somebody in India just to do effectively like voiceover and translate it. Probably do that for $500 to $1,000. And that will be worth it to get them to understand what you're trying to say. All right, as we wrap up, just a few other considerations. I mentioned have a sound, solid terms and condition that addresses everything on a macro level from your international affiliates and your US affiliates. So you can get that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes to get the template. You can just download the template, change a few things, and bada boom, bada bing. One thing to definitely start watching out for more and more is data protection and privacy. And you got GDPR and European Union. There's probably something in China and probably something in India. There's all these different markets. So just make sure you're aware of those. Make sure you're aware of the tax implications. With international affiliates, you have to get a W-8 BEN. To this day, I still don't know what the BEN stands for. I'm kind of curious, but you got to get a W-8 BEN. Make sure you're getting that. Make sure you talk to a CPA if you need to. There are some complexities with international taxation and all that. The last thing I'll say is just around IP, intellectual property. Make sure that your affiliates are not infringing on trademarks or copyrights or any other IP that's owned by somebody else. Sometimes I have found they just don't know. They don't know that it is illegal to copy other people's stuff. Like, it's a cultural thing, but it is in the United States. And they are representing a United States-based company, and they are representing you. And then I guess the last thing I would say is just keep up to date on those regulatory changes in regard to the legal side and the different hundreds of jurisdictions. It's totally worth it to work with these affiliates. You just need to know how. So if you got any questions about this or anything else, shoot me a text anytime, 260-217-4619. Happy to answer those questions. Check the show notes links. I've got linked to the stuff I did about the FTC laws, the terms and conditions template that I talked about. I'll link to that so you can just easily go grab that. I'll have a link to ShareASale and GMAS as well. So if you want to go grab those tools, you can. Again, if you got questions, text me 260-217-4619 and make sure to hit subscribe, because in the next episode, I'm going to talk about how to make money from affiliate product reviews. So for you affiliate managers, I'm going to talk about how to get your affiliates to do that and how they can make money from writing product reviews about you. And then for you affiliates, how to do that, how to make money from writing affiliate product reviews. So make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening today. Remember to check out all of our deep dives into affiliate marketing at theaffiliateguide.tv. And if you have a question, ask it at asktheaffiliateguide.com. Who knows? Maybe you even be featured on an upcoming episode. And lastly, if you haven't yet, make sure to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this episode. See you soon.